Hello there, welcome to a new look, never mind the Bullens. This is your bite-sized Everton podcast and vodcast. I'm Mike Peters and this is episode 66. It's not new look obviously if you're just listening to the podcast, but if you go and look at the vodcast, then it is a new look. If you're looking at the vodcast, then you can see that it's new. It's all very exciting, isn't it? All things have moved around and looks, well, a lot better, to be fair, than it did before. But there we go. Thank you to my top content colleague, Dan Morfitt, for taking care of all of that, because as this podcast is a top content production, you know, it's time he bloody well got involved as far as I'm concerned. But I shall do the actual content for this, and obviously need to talk about the Villa game. And, you know, on the face of it, if you just looked at the scoreline in isolation, you would say, well, Villa were comfortable winners and they were well beaten, Everton. But actually, the performance, and I discussed this with the Villa fan after the game, who, you know, game football's all about opinions. He felt Villa were well on top of the game throughout. I don't necessarily agree with that. They probably might have deserved to sneak it by a goal, but I certainly don't think 3-0 is an accurate reflection of the scoreline. And by the sounds of things, Dean Smith didn't either. I haven't brought myself to watch it on Match of the Day. I watched it in real time. I thought, that's enough. I don't need to sit through that again. But for an hour, it was pretty even Stevens, really. We'd had a couple of opportunities. Again, final ball, as it has done, almost a perennial Everton issue, had sort of let us down. But, you know, we'd been in the game. We'd hit them well on the break. I thought we were very, very unlucky start of second half. I'm not quite sure what game Craig Pawson was watching to not think that Conce's pull back on Damari Gray didn't warrant at the very least a yellow card, if not something possibly more severe, because to me that looked like he was clearly through on goal and it was going to be a goal scoring opportunity. The fact that didn't even go to VAR, I think is just leaving us all a bit bewildered. I think the light touch on the referees in a broader point this season is better. It's made the game flow a bit more, but there's issues you're just thinking, incidents within matches, and you're just thinking, how is that not been given as a penalty? The second challenge on Ronaldo, I think it was by Kurt Zouma yesterday in the Manchester United West Ham game. The first one, the Kufal, definitely not a penalty in my opinion. Ronaldo clearly plays for that, quelle surprise. But the second one, Zuma's taken him out, and how he's not given a penalty for that and not even gone to look at it in VAR, I just can't understand that whatsoever. But hey, you know, it's Martin Atkinson for you, as we Evertonians know only too well. His decisions at time can boggle the mind. But I'm not quite sure how that didn't even get looked at by Paul Tierney as VAR official, or Craig Pawson sent to have a look at it. Bizarre. Now, you know, that's within a couple of minutes, then Matty Cash has whizzed down the other end and gone past a somewhat statuesque Luca Dean off the boil again. Second game running. He's just not quite started the season with any sort of form. He was good against Southampton, particularly in the second half when he was playing further forward, but I'm just a bit concerned about him at the minute. He's just not been at it, so a chance to redress that on Saturday against Norwich. And then as soon as we went one down, I just thought, we're going to struggle here. You just couldn't see where goals are coming from. Salomon Rondon, clearly not fully fit, so I can't really lay any blame at his door, but it just showed the sort of the paucity of the resources that we have at the minute, which makes the whole James Rodriguez situation all the more peculiar, really, and we'll get to that in a minute. But then obviously, you know, we were blitzed by, you know, it was this role reversal of being blitzed by a team in claret and blue, as we blitzed the team in claret and blue last Monday against Burnley, because Villa scored 3 goals in 7 or 8 minutes, and the game's done and dusted. As soon as the second one went in, that was it. I mean, there was no chance of us getting back. I thought Damari Gray looked very sharp, though. It just says that, you know, when we're shorn of Jordan Pickford, although I think Asmir Begovic did very well, particularly Richarlison and Calvert-Lewin, I don't think we can quite quantify, or maybe we can now, how crucial they are. I think even if we'd had Richarlison playing, it would have made a colossal difference. Just having one of them playing, just of those two, just makes a huge, huge difference to our dynamism up front and the threat that we can provide. As well as Andros Townsend, as Damari Gray played, and Abdoulaye Doucouré played, you know, I mean, you know, when you swap in Richarlison out or Dominic Calvert-Lewin out for Alex Iwobi, all due respect, you know, no matter the sort of espousing of how good Iwobi has been in training, etc., and how keen he's been, how much he loves football, that's been, said in the press by Rafael Benitez over the last couple of weeks. The simple fact of it is a massive drop down in quality, and certainly in terms of final product. And there were a couple of times, again, he got into positions and the final product wasn't there, the final ball wasn't there, and that's disappointing. So, Ben Godfrey again played out of position, was torn strips off him, and at once, he was quite rightly taken off before he potentially got sent off, because another week's worth of training, you'd hope, against his old club, Norwich. Next week, he'll have the bit between his teeth and all the rest of it. But a very disappointing result, but we have to put that in context and say, well, hang on, if we go to Norwich, and I said this in the last episode, that if we beat Norwich and we come out of our opening 6 matches with, it will be 13 points at that stage, having won 4, drawn 1 and lost 1, we'd all go, yeah, it's not bad. I think we'd have been happy with that, with where we are as a squad and the transition and the financial fair play restrictions that have been put in place in terms of on our transfer activity this past summer. I think we'd have to say, do you know what, that's not bad. But Saturday did shine a light on clear flaws in and that strength in depth that we have lacked, that we lack at the minute, and we've got to manage that for another 3 and a bit months until the transfer window opens and we can potentially get some players in. In terms of players going out, obviously, James Rodriguez being linked, as I record this on Monday morning, he's being reported that he's was spotted at Manchester Airport, apparently. And I'm thinking, is this another Juan Roman Riquelme situation where he's been spotted at John Moores Airport, which is a running transfer deadline day joke over many a year. But apparently, I think that was a legitimate sighting, because he's now turned up. He's talking to a club in Qatar. I just... Apparently, I'm not quite sure. Obviously, there's a lot of... Rafa Benitez has played an absolute straight bat when asked about him and said he's been training and that's kind of it. Apparently, there was now said that he had a muscle problem and he didn't want to risk it, blah, blah, blah. I'm not quite sure what's going on there. But the simple fact of it is, he's a player that we're paying £200,000 a week. If there's a space on the bench, he should have been on it on Saturday. Apparently, he effectively ruled himself out. That's what the club, or certainly what Rafa has said. So whether that's true or not, or whether that's just, bringing the divide between the two of them and turning it into an absolute chasm, who knows? But it's a very peculiar situation. And when I still think he can do a job for us, I really do. But obviously the issue is relationship. I don't think he's going to start. But then how can we afford to have a player that we're paying $200,000 a week on the bench all the time? Because he clearly doesn't fit in to the way that obviously Rafa wants to play and the way he wants to play with pace. That said, he can come on and he can create things. He has that ability. He's a world-class player. Still a world-class player. So if we can somehow find a way of managing him, there is the bit of the fan in me who wants to see James Rodriguez in a blue shirt at Goodison Park in front of fans, and it will be a travesty, I think, for all of us who've not seen him. I saw him at Old Trafford in that morning in that pre-season friendly, so I can say I've seen him in an Everton shirt, and there's not that many of us that can say that, but I think it'd be a massive shame to have a player of his calibre that's never played in front of a Goodison crowd. And I just wonder what kind of galvanising effect that could have on him, and playing that and seeing the love that we have for him. But equally, his attitude has got to be better. He's a professional footballer and he needs to be professional. And at the moment, you can argue it that he might not be being that, particularly when he doesn't even know we're playing at times and all the rest of it. So, but from a business point of view, if he can't get this move to Qatar, then that means we've got to pay him for another 3 and a bit months, which is going to be £3 or £4 million. And that's a significant outlay on a player who might not play that many minutes for us or might not really fit into what we're doing. But if we get any more injuries, we're going to kind of need him. So it's a very, very tricky situation to manage. And ultimately, I can't really draw a conclusion, because what will be will be. We just have to wait and see what happens. By the time we get to episode 67 after the Norwich game, it could all be done and dusted, and he could be playing for a random club in the Middle East, which I think would be such a shame for him in terms of the calibre of player to be playing in a league like that. But if they're prepared to pay him, and that's what he wants at this stage of his career, and he feels that that's all his body can manage, then so be it. It would be a tremendous shame for his Everton career to end in that way. So, until then, always good to get your thoughts on, anything that has been said in the podcast. At NMTB Pod on Twitter, or you can tweet me directly at DJ Mike Peters, or you can drop me an email, nmtbpod@gmail.com, and drop us a voice note through the description in the podcast app. All of that you'll see in just a second when this vodcast ends, if you're watching on the video. The podcast, you'll get all this anyway, it's fine. Until next time, this has been a top content production. Come on, you Blues.